breaking overnight, a CNN exclusive. New details of the U.S. military's final chaotic days in Afghanistan. CNN obtained transcripts of interviews with the House Foreign Affairs Committee in which three officials say the 2021 evacuation plan was created from scratch and they were rushed there with little time to prepare. 13 U.S. service members were killed in twin bombing attacks by the Taliban during that evacuation. Twin bombing attacks during that evacuation, I should say. Attribution unclear. CNN's Kylie Atwood helped break this story. What are you learning this morning, Kylie?
Well, listen, these transcribed interviews from these State Department officials paint just how suddenly they were thrust into the heart of this chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal. One of them was working at a posting in Turkey, another one working on Arctic affairs, and a third was working at the State Department, asked by then Deputy Secretary of State to go to Kabul, and left 8 to 10 hours later. It was a very sudden launch to this effort for them. And then when they got there on the ground, John, what these folks describe was situations that were changing minute by minute, and that there was no plan that was an effective plan in place that they were following. They were essentially creating that plan on the fly. I want to read to you a portion of the transcribed interview from James DeHart, one of these State Department officials, who was asked, quote, "Were you executing off a specific plan?" And he answered by saying, "I would say not really. We had to, I would say, create from scratch tactical operations that would get our priority people into the airport." And then, of course, he went on to add, "We were routinely as effective as we could be under the circumstances." But those circumstances on the ground were just so challenging. They talk about having to work with the Taliban and how hard that was. Now, the State Department is doubling down on the Biden administration's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan, saying it was the right decision. It gave them more ability to focus on other foreign policy issues. Of course, Ukraine and the Middle East are two that they name. And I do want to take a step back here. Chairman McCaul from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, who is leading this investigation, has been carrying out this investigation for more than 2 years now. And according to sources who are working on this investigation, what they're going to do with all of these transcribed interviews is put together a report with the key takeaways. And when you talk to Biden administration officials, they are very cognizant of the fact that there's a political motive here for Congressman McCaul and the Republicans who are leading this investigation. They want this issue to come to the fore around the time of the November elections. We'll have to watch and see if that report comes out around that time so that they can focus on one of the worst parts, one of the, really damaging aspects of the Biden administration's foreign policy legacy.
I mean, David Frum, you could argue that this debacle, let's call it what it was a real turning point for the Biden administration. I mean, what does this new reporting tell you?
Well, in the three major foreign policy decisions of the Biden administration, you see the same pattern appearing in Afghanistan, in Israel, and in Ukraine, where they want two contradictory things and refuse to choose. So they want out of Afghanistan, and they want out of Afghanistan fast. But they want to protect allies and friends in Afghanistan and have an orderly withdrawal. In Ukraine, they want to help Ukraine survive, but they don't want Ukraine to hit Russia too hard. They don't want to expand the war. In Israel, they want to support Israel against Hamas, but they don't want to have bad things appear on television. This is an administration where the foreign policy is run by very, very smart people, often too smart for their own good, because that less smart people would say, we can't have two things. If we have one thing, will be hard enough. Why don't we do one thing? That's difficult enough. Two things that are contradictory, that's impossible.
Very briefly.
Well, I'm
sorry, Kate. We're putting you on the spot this morning.
I'm not sure I entirely agree with that assessment, but I do think, remember, the situation in Afghanistan was such the Trump administration had entered into an agreement with the Taliban. The timeline was not the Biden administration's to set here. They were working with constraints that had been laid out by the Trump administration. Also, on this question of a NEO, announcing a NEO 3 months before you leave signals to the entirety of the world that you have no confidence in the Afghan government. So it was a chicken and an egg situation that was challenging. We certainly didn't want to be in a situation like we wound up in, with people crashing the gates and crashing the planes. But you also can't 3 months ahead of departure signal to the world, we're rushing people out of the country because we have no faith that the government is going to stand when we go. So, these were really complicated and difficult situations. And I can tell you that the administration was very focused on trying to get people out safely, get them out quickly. It was a very challenging situation.
Kylie, great reporting. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I really appreciate it.